Task Force. And his panelists, Doyle Mitchell, President and CEO of Industrial Bank, Daniel Delahanty, Senior Vice President, Capital One, Phyllis Cassidy, Founder and Executive Director, Good Work Network, and Marcia Bailey, Founder and CEO, Women's Economic Ventures.
Are we live here? All right, thank you. Great conversation so far. Can I really encourage folks, if you're in the back, like, come on up, come a little closer up here. I really encourage everyone to fill in a little toward the front. I really want, we had a part one of this conversation yesterday, and we left that room with like 10 hands in the air. So I do, feel if you have a question or a comment or a solution as we go through this conversation, please just raise your hand, step up to a mic, and be a part of the discussion. So just in the interest of time, I think everyone knows the folks on this panel, so I'm not going to do introductions. We are going to jump right into it. Our goal here in this discussion is to come up with the solution as to how we systemically connect 8,000 declines to the system of community lenders. Okay, and that word systemic is very important, because let me tell you what it's not. It is not the one thing that everyone in the room said actually works, which is the idea that your business development officers are going out and forming relationships every day with branch managers. We understand that works. We understand that personal relationships are extraordinarily important, and it should be our goal to have hyper-centralized solutions that are delivered hyper-locally. But as it relates to this 8,000 declines and the connection between the banking system and the connection between community lending, it cannot be done one branch relationship at a time. It's got to be done at a systemic level, and so that's what we're here with the panelists to figure out. Here's some of the data that came out of yesterday's discussion. Right now, where there are community lenders fielding declines from banks at some scale, they are seeing 40 to 50% of the decline population can be approved. So I started the day by saying that none of us expect that all 8,000 can be approved, but the fact that 40 to 50% can be is something we should be jumping on right away. We heard that the banks are motivated, number one, by customer service and customer relationship issues, and secondarily by CRA. That CRA does not lead the charge. The belief is that if you're doing a great job of serving the community, you will meet your CRA obligations. Another part of the conversation was that banks are not going to be coming back to small loans. The days of the stated income business loan are gone. The reasons for that, Dodd-Frank, CFPB, Basel III, and the proof is that if you look at the average SBA loan, it's now $400,000 on average. So everyone in this room has a big job to do, because there's not going to be a resurgence in the small commercial loan as the economy improves. An interesting thing that came out of the discussion is that the credit quality of a declined bank loan is often superior to the through-the-door loan applicant in the typical CDFI. You're going to find that 680 FICO, 660 FICO applicant, whereas in the through the door population at CDFI, you might find someone who's much, much lower than that. So today, I want to encourage everyone to speak in the positive. We're here to identify how the challenges can be solved. We know that there's a reason, and actually dozens of reasons, why there has not to date been this systemic connection. But we're going to figure out in the next 45 minutes how to change that. Everybody ready? Good. So Doyle, welcome. Let's start with you. So what is holding banks back, your bank, your colleagues and other banks, from systematically delivering declined customers to community lenders?
Well, thank you, Mitch. I appreciate being here. I am going to try to keep it positive. I think systematically, number one, community banks, other than large banks, we make about half the loans of all banks in the country, even though we only represent 15% of the assets. So first of all, community banks, we want to make loans. we have to. We're more traditionally dependent on loan interest income than we are other sources of income that some other banks might be. And so we really like to make loans. It almost, you think of it as a win when you're able to make a loan. And I know personally, loan officers and myself having been one, really enjoyed the approval process. I can say this, though. I've spent a lot of time with declines when I was a lender, and we do try to refer our customers to other sources where they can get financing or technical assistance if need be. I think one of the problems is we're so busy. We're so busy because the industry is so heavily regulated, and many of the regulations that were applied to prevent this kind of problem that we had in the most recent crisis applies to community banks as well as it does some of the larger banks. And it doesn't leave us a lot of time to really focus on declines. However, I can tell you Industrial Bank, having been around for 80 years, we have a couple of programs where we actually do second looks on certain loans, particularly churches and their businesses or their side programs. But many times we go back even on small business loans and take a second look. And once we try to refer them to different sources, it does become kind of difficult because we've got to put on new assets, and there's a lot of pressure for us to do that given the high and increasing cost of compliance in the industry. But we have two partners where we refer loans to. I can't remember the name of one of them, but the other one is WACIF in Washington, D.C., Washington Area Community Investment Fund. And we focus on trying to refer our declines to WACIF, and they also try to refer loans that may have graduated their programs to us. And it's starting to work well, but it really is a one-on-one proposition. Where
Have you ever looked at making that more systematic and try to go through a more like, host-to-host type connection?
Well, you know what? I really no. And actually, because I'm not quite sure we've been presented with the options of doing it on a more systemic kind of way, and I would be totally open to doing that because it would benefit us as well if we could share declines back and forth on a more host-to-host kind of method, and then it would be a lot easier for us.
Marcia, from a CDFI's perspective, what's holding CDFIs back from forming these kind of connections with the banking community?
So what you said initially about the individual relationships, I think that from our perspective and the perspective of other CDFIs I've talked to, there's a lot of churn within the banks themselves, so they have a lot of turnover in their loan officers. And so it is almost this constant kind of outreach that you have to do to make sure that every business lender within a bank knows that you exist. So the second thing that we hear from banks often is, well, we have confidentiality issues, and so we can't really refer a borrower to you without their permission, which seems to me a pretty easily solvable a question. So, and I think from the CDFI perspective, often when we look at the bank perspective, is really what's in it for that individual lender. If you have a lender who's making money on commissions for making, X, volume of loans, then there has to be some reward for them. And I think, bankers understand that, okay, if we have a pre-bankable client who can come back to us in 3 years and be bankable, hopefully that's a loyal customer that you have. So we have only one bank, Union Bank, that we work with in California that has a systematic program where they define partners in the community that they will refer to. But Union Bank bought Santa Barbara Bank and Trust in the last year, which is basically our service footprint. And there's still a big kind of information disconnect there. And I think there are so many mergers within the industry too. So you have, you have different bank cultures coming together, and I think there's a real lack of communication, within the bank. And so I think this can be kind of part of our discussion is about can we give the banks CRA credit for referring out loans and knowing how to refer the loans and being familiar with the
making it easy.
products that we have.
Yep. Well, and I think one of the things that we all think a lot about is, well, there's the community development side of the bank that's providing capital to organizations with the goal of creating the greatest impact. And then there's the commercial side of the bank that is generating, all of these leads, all of these declines. Daniel, what happens behind the Capital One curtain? What's the relationship between those two parts of the bank? And, is there an opportunity to create a better communication that might help push all of this along? What are some of the challenges there?
Sure. Thanks for asking that, Mitch. I've been at this for about 7 years at a increasingly larger institution, and it's difficult. I would just start by saying that you do need to try and systematize, but you can't get rid of the dynamics in the neighborhoods, because folks need more than capital and credit, and the relationship and the customer needs and connecting them to the services that folks like Phyllis and others provide. That's part of it. So I think we need to take a broader and more holistic view. So within the Capital One, the community development team, our primary goal, we're under the rubric of CRA in my institution, we want our bank to make as many loans as possible. All right. So when we're engaging the leaders of our small business work, that's our focus. This is what the data shows. We need you to do more. This is the CRA goal as well. So that's first and foremost our emphasis in just driving that performance and pushing internally to make more credit. So on the system side, the second look at the referral to the system, everybody gets it. For us, it's do the right thing. It's difficult. I'm not saying it's impossible. There are a couple of challenges that we face, and you can cut me off, Mitch, if you will. We've been at this in local neighborhoods since 07, 08, and my teammate Teresa's here, and we work with many of the institutions. We focused on getting a lot of referrals out, and one of the things that frustrates us, and it frustrates the providers whom we send deals to, is that we were only closing about 20% of the loans that we made. So what does that tell me? It tells me
out
that
of the referrals, or
out of the referrals.
Okay.
Out of the referrals. So that's good. I love to get the local forest in Weehawken who got turned down, able to pursue their dream and have the delight. But it's made me realize that we need to get the process closer to the internal credit decisioning in a bank,
Right.
which is in flux and changes. But it also begs the question about coverage. Okay, so we're in 8 states. If I'm going for a system ask,
Yep.
it's hard to nuance it. I don't have a strong provider in Long Island and 2 major counties where we have market share.
Right.
So there are challenges in there, but there are ways to try, and this is where my focus has been, and Janie can attest to this because we've gotten and engaged leaders in the CDFI community to talk about the issues internally. How do we capture those marginal applicants